Fixed price contracts are no longer. No more fixed price contract. Well, this is what this article would have you believe. I'm Josh, a builder here in New Zealand. Let me share my thoughts on this, what parts of it I think are true, but why I still think we can offer a fixed price contract. So this is a perfect time to talk about fixed price contracts and why some people believe that they're not going to work. If you haven't already, go back and watch part 1 of this series about how dire it is out there right now and what's driving supply and demand. Weatherboard, 42-week delay. Roofing coils, 16 weeks. Soffites, 20 weeks. Fascia board, 8 weeks. Retaining timber, 8 weeks. Pine decking, 8 weeks. Cedar weatherboard, non-existent. Basically, almost all timber weatherboards are now non-existent. Some mills are saying we're not taking orders until next April. So there's this article that's been floating around. I don't know where it originated, but I saw it on Radio New Zealand. And it talks about fixed price contracts becoming a thing of the past. If we were doing this like a proper thing, we'd be like, Storm Brewing as builders unable to offer fixed price contracts due to material shortages. House builders are being deterred from offering fixed price contracts on jobs by escalating prices and critical shortages of materials. Mortgage brokers are now finding escalation clauses cropping up in contracts to allow for material prices to rise. To be honest, escalation clauses have been in contracts for ages, and no builder worth their salt is going to lock in a price indefinitely without any kind of like clause. The situation is exacerbated by the pandemic choking supply chains north and south so severely some builders are having to down tools. Master Builders Chief Executive David Kelly warned in a webinar against not being talked into a fixed price job. You don't know what's going to happen. Clients will want a fixed price. I understand that. Builders like to help people, but you have to preserve your margin and be very, very wary. You know, as a builder, I can definitely see both sides of that, and I agree, but I think there's a way to navigate the contract and give you what you need, but also make sure that we protect ourselves. It's important that both of us are confident, because if we're both confident, we can work together and we can achieve the outcome that your project needs. Having an agreement in place that gives both parties confidence and ultimately means that you win and I win. When we both win, it's a good outcome for everyone. Basically, builders are struggling to get materials, full stop. They're struggling with lead times, they're struggling with delays, they're struggling with just getting consents to even start a job. And in the meantime, the market prices are just marching on upwards. There's jobs where we literally signed a contract a year ago and we still don't have access to the land. We still don't have consent. We locked that in based on last year's prices or early this year's prices, and some things in the market have moved so much in that time that we have no choice but to reprice that job. Part number 1 of pricing is I work out all the materials that you're going to use over the build. And now that's a lot of items. What we do is we send it to a quantity surveyor for a schedule of materials or a takeoff. We get back a 4-page list of everything down to the nails and the brackets and the pieces of timber and the flooring sheet. So as well as sending off for a schedule of quantities, I send it off to about 15 subcontractors that all give me an indication of their price: paint, plaster, plumber, sparky, garage door, roof. I suppose a fixed price contract is beneficial to both the builder and the client. Like obviously the client just wants certainty. A fixed price contract is not the only way to build. There's a couple of other ways. You can do cost plus, which is basically you would agree on a margin and then you do an open book on all materials and all costs, and then you just put a margin on top. You can do charge up. You can do kind of like a hybrid of those two as well. But probably the one that's been pushed here in New Zealand for the longest is fixed price contracts. We'll pop out a window, eh? While the majority of your build will be a fixed price, there will be elements that are either an allowance or charge up. Often we will do things like the earthworks or the landscaping afterwards on a charge up basis, depending on your budget and your needs. It's not the only way to build, but it's probably the most popular way right now for both the builder and the client, and there's a number of reasons why. For the client, they just want certainty. You don't really care about all the components that went into making that thing. Let's say you buy an iPhone. You don't really care about the price of lithium and how hard it was to create that Gorilla Glass on the screen. You just want the phone and you just need to know how much the final price is. And for a certain extent, it's a little bit like that with your home. But the other thing is, a home is way more personal than a phone. And the way that you use it is way different. And so you want to be able to like tweak it and change it. And also your parcel of land is different to every other person's parcel of land. And so we need to make sure that we customize your home to suit your style, needs and budget. It's a cool 2 degrees on site. The joys of working in winter in the Hutt Valley. You can see my breath. You probably can't see that on camera. See this weatherboard here? We ordered that 15 weeks ago. And see this roofing materials here? We ordered that 10 weeks ago. But do you know the crazy thing is? We only put that concrete slab down 5 weeks ago. So then, you know, the other way the fixed price helps you is you can lock in your mortgage with your bank. If you are dealing with a bank, and 95% of my clients are, I have built houses for people who have no mortgages, but majority of people have a mortgage, and so your bank wants certainty on that price as well. For me as the builder, I kind of want certainty on the jobs coming up, and I want to know like the types of work I've got in the bag. I want to create a team that can handle that work, but more importantly now, I want to be able to go and lock in all those materials and order all that stuff, but I want certainty that I'm going to be able to build your house for less than the fixed price that we agreed on. Obviously, I'm in business and the goal of a business is to make a return at the end of the day. So let's go back to the article. In here, in this article, they talk about how it's the end of fixed price contracts. What I personally believe is that it's not as dire as this article is painting out. There is some changes coming where you, the client, and your bank will need to work with me, the builder, but we've crunched some numbers on some current builds and some upcoming builds, and we believe that about 80 to 85% of a build can still be locked in, providing that it's a standalone house, the earthworks are already done, which they would be done on an allowance anyway, that all of the major items such as frame, roof, windows, all of those subcontractor quotes are current and locked in and held for the next 3 to 6 months. And up until now they have been. I've never had one of those people change their price on me in the short term. Once we've agreed on a price, because they're thinking a year ahead and they've locked in their supply chain for the next year as well. Already 12 to 15% of the contract is allowances to spend on like flooring, bathroom gear, kitchen, bench top, appliances. You can spend up or down depending on your taste and your budget as well. Given all of those facts, I believe that we can lock in the majority of a fixed price, but there are some things that we're going to have to look at allowances for, and maybe we're going to have to think about building materials being one of those line items where we lock it in on today's prices, and as long as we get all the materials at that price, we can build for that price. But just like if your flooring budget or your bathroom budget goes up, if your materials go up, we've got to work out a way to handle that. If you look at the whole contract and we can lock in this much, we're only left with this portion here. And if that portion there goes up by a crazy 20 to 30%, let's call it 25%, that's only a 3 to 4% increase on the total contract. When you're embarking on a project like this, you should be holding a 5% contingency anyway. If your builder says it's going to cost 500 grand, you should have an extra 25 grand up your sleeve for things unforeseen and just extras and changing your mind and just contingency. You should have had that regardless of these times anyway, you know? Let's wrap up this little 2-part series. Number one, it's pretty tough out there right now, and we've talked about some of the reasons why, aside from lockdown, and COVID has just added more fuel to the fire of an already dire situation. Number two, we've talked about some of the things we can do to get ahead of that and how important it is for us to work together. And so we're making a number of changes here at J&K about how we approach future contracts to stay ahead of that. And unfortunately, one of those things will be kind of really limiting the choice to products that we know that we can lock in supply of. And number three, we've talked about fixed price contracts and why I believe that fixed price contracts will still exist, but how we might need to morph certain parts of that contract to allow for these different times. If you haven't already, go and check out some of our building vlogs, everything from foundations down, roofs on, interior process. Go and check it out, you'll love it. Thanks for watching.